If you want to be a clear and confident speaker, particularly when you're put on the spot, then you need just 10 minutes a day for 10 straight days to see results. And in this video, I'll walk you through the 10-day blueprint where each day you'll know exactly which skills to work on in order to see immediate results as a more polished speaker. My name is Preston and I help people be clear, confident, impromptu speakers so that they can advance their careers and their lives. All right, let's get into it. So to build the right speaking foundations, you need to have this 3-step approach. You're going to need your phone and you're going to need about 5 minutes. So this first step is you're going to record yourself speaking about whatever I tell you across these 10 days. The second thing is to watch a recording of yourself, but mute your audio. So you're just going to look at your facial expressions and your body language, your use of your hands in particular. And the third thing to do is to then turn the camera away so you're not watching yourself, but instead just listening to the audio. Are you saying a lot of filler words? Do you have nice modulation or volume with your tone? How are you structured? You're going to evaluate yourself as you speak that way. So with those foundations in mind, let's get into day one. Day one's focus is all about removing your filter. And we're going to do this by playing the narration game. So the idea is you're going to take any object around you. And for me, it might be this plaque here by Kit, which is the studio where I'm currently recording this in Boise, Idaho. So thanks, Kit, for allowing me to record. And you're going to talk about anything you want about the object for just 1 minute straight. But here's the rule. You do not stop speaking. You can pause very briefly to start your next sentence so that you can breathe. But I don't want you to be thinking about what you need to say. I just want you to remove the filter, right? So that when you have certain words from your brain, they're just coming out through your mouth. Now, this may seem awkward because you're going to start saying things that don't make sense, but that is the entire point. Because the problem when we speak is that we are so focused on sounding perfect, sounding polished, that we self-edit too much to the point where we freeze and we don't say anything at all, or we mumble or ramble. So if we can start by removing the filter, we're essentially reducing the friction from our brains all the way to our mouths when we communicate. So let me demonstrate really quickly. This is a Kit Studio plaque. I see that it has a lot of interesting questions like, what are you creating today? And what are you excited about? The thing that I'm creating today is this 10-day blueprint to help you become a more clear, confident speaker, specifically for beginners who are feeling a bit stuck. Okay, so that's just me talking off the top. It doesn't matter what you say, just make sure that you speak fluidly without inserting way too many pauses. Day 2 is what I call the volume dial. So here's what you do. You're gonna take a random number generator between 1 and 10. And whenever you see the number 10, you're going to be really loud, provocative. You're gonna basically shout to the point where you're filling up the entire stage when you speak. And then when you speak at a level 1 or 2, you're barely whispering, so they have to lean in to hear you. And then when you're speaking at a level 5, you're gonna be at your normal pace. But notice what happens as you turn up and down the volume dial as you speak about anything. You're gonna feel like you're much more dynamic as a speaker. For example, when you speak really loud, you might become really fast and animated and energetic, and that's great. But then when you speak quite softly, you might lower your tone and you might speak more slowly. You see how your pace changes with your volume, your level of energy changes as well, and that dynamic nature of you speaking is what gets people hooked to you. So we want to practice exploring our vocal range, so all you need to do is get out a timer, even if it's for a minute, just speaking about anything, but you could just pretend to play with that dial. You could either have a number just throw at you, so you just react to it and respond with higher volume or lower volume, or you could just imagine words in your head and just make sure to have enough variance as you go. All right, so that is day 2. The whole idea is that when you are speaking at a more neutral tone, you are becoming more dynamic because you've now explored the full vocal range. The problem, though, becomes when you just speak like this in a monotone and it's really boring and you're at the same pace. So that's why this volume dial game is so important to being memorable as a speaker. On day 3, you're gonna focus on speaking with fewer filler words. So this is really hard. Our tendency is to say or a lot. Now, let me tell you, it's okay if you say filler words. In fact, sometimes saying a few filler words is good because it makes you sound more human. But it becomes a problem when those filler words get in the way of people understanding you. So here's what we want to do. We're going to take the same game in day one, the narration game, but all we're going to do is focus on saying anything that comes to mind related to the object without saying a filler word, or So you'll notice that as you practice doing this, your pace may slow down. That is really good. You don't necessarily want to speak really fast, you want to slow down. Now in day 3, you can insert longer pauses before you begin the next sentence. But the key to remember here is that by internalizing this slower pace, you will have much more control of what you say. You won't ramble, you'll be more methodical with your language. Day 4 is still about your delivery, but this time we're going to focus on speaking with a smile. So notice what happens. When I speak with a smile, my tone immediately feels more energetic, more uplifting, happier. But when I speak with a bit of a frown, notice immediately how my voice changes. I can't even help it. I can't even help how my voice sounds as long as I'm using my facial expressions. My facial expressions you can think of are like the remote control behind the tone of my voice. So what we want to practice is to sound more energetic and avoid that monotone. How do you do this? Well, you can talk about anything uplifting, but just try to smile as you speak. And if you're really struggling, and if you don't know, am I smiling enough? Look at the creases by your eyes. You should see a few creases as you're speaking. You should see more teeth as you speak. It may feel awkward, it may feel uncomfortable squinting your eyes like this, but the more you practice this, the more that your facial expressions, your facial muscles will really adjust. And a pro tip here, in case you're struggling and in case you're sounding flat, is to start smiling first like this, and then speak. So you're starting off with a smile, it's a lot easier to maintain it. Day 5 is where we start getting into a few frameworks. So these are structures to help you speak more articulately and clearly. The first framework that we'll practice is the past, present, future framework. You can simply tell a story by walking people through time. So I like to take the prompt, tell me about a particular childhood memory that stands out to you. And then when you record yourself, I want you to focus on start by saying the past, something in the past, start by saying something in the present, and then start by saying something in the future. So let me demonstrate very quickly how you can do this in like 30 seconds or less. In the past, as a child, I used to be terrified whenever the teacher would call on me to answer a question. I even remember at one point peeing in my pants because I was so nervous. But now look at me. I'm teaching people how to communicate on camera, so I've definitely come a long way. And in today's talk, I hope to share with you what are the 3 things that helped me gain a lot of this confidence as a speaker. So that's an example of a short story that you can tell. I spent no more than 2 sentences for each piece of the framework. And if you're struggling to really do this, then what I recommend is using what I call signposts. Signposts are key words at the beginning of a sentence that signal to you where you are in the framework. For example, if you say in the past, that indicates that we're in the past portion of the framework. But then notice how I said, but now, so that indicates I'm in the present. And then you can say, I hope to, or moving forward. That indicates we're talking about the future. So try using that framework. Again, if you can apply a lot of the other skills while you're doing this, that's great. But the key thing to remember here is that you don't necessarily want to focus on every single skill that we've covered days 1 through 4 when you practice in day 5 how to tell a story. You just want to start by following the framework and seeing what happens, okay? So just know that this is a process. Speaking is like a sport. You're not going to become brilliant overnight, but you're going to make a lot of great progress following this blueprint. And if you're finding this helpful, I think you'll love the Impromptu Speakers Academy. This is my flagship program where I teach people how to become brilliant, articulate speakers, following frameworks, getting tons of practice and feedback to improve. Now, in day 6, we're going to recap days 1 through 5. So you're going to take a little bit more time, and for each recording, you're going to practice day 1 skill, days 2 skill, day 3 skill, etc. make sure that when you practice, you're focusing on just one skill at a time, not trying to combine everything all at once because you're going to get confused. And the more you do this, the more you'll naturally start incorporating other things that you've learned from previous days without even thinking about it. That's the benefit of practice. And that's why it's so important that you watch your videos so that you can critique yourself and make sure that you're on track. Because let's face it, you're your best critic. The analogy is like being a surfer. If you were to try to learn how to surf, it's really hard to remember to keep your body positioned in a certain way, keep your arms out, keep tilting a certain way. You're just focusing on the micro skills. But the best speakers just look ahead at where they're going and then their body follows. So for you, that's the key metaphor to keep in mind. Just look ahead at trying to accomplish the task and then your body will follow. Your speaking muscles will follow. And that will be how you improve the fastest. Now, day 7 is about saying your bluff. BLUF stands for bottom line up front. This means that whenever you're asked a question, you're able to answer it very concisely, ideally in less than 10 seconds. So let me demonstrate how this might work. You might see a series of questions, and if you're looking for more questions, you can take a look at the prompt bank in the description below. But these questions could be things like, what was your favorite childhood memory? Now, watch as I demonstrate this. My favorite childhood memory was learning how to play table tennis with my dad at 5 years old. Notice how I am reframing the question in my answer, like my favorite childhood memory was blank. And then I'm just completing the sentence with a very concrete idea. I'm not rambling, I'm not going off, I'm just picking one core BLUF statement. And then I just lower my tone at the end of the sentence. So when you're practicing in day 7, take out a series of questions, read the question, and then give me your BLUF statement. Just do that over and over again for different types of questions, and you'll get the hang of speaking more concisely. Now, day 8 is what I call word association lightning. You're going to take the same skill from day 7, which is your BLUF statement, and you're going to just add an explanation at the end of it. So your BLUF statement should still be around 10 seconds, and your explanation can be 30 to 45 seconds. Now, I call it word association lightning because you can have fun with this, or you might take a specific object and you make a point about it, and then you make an explanation that ties to your point. So, for example, if I see this piece of paper here, I might say something like, this piece of paper is really important for Kit to get new prospective customers. And I say this because there are a few questions that they ask new creators like myself in their studios. For example, who are you? What content do you create? What's your tech stack? Why is email important and how has that changed over time? They're able to collect information about new creators that come to their studio so that they can advertise to them for products. See, I just made that up off the top of my head, but what did I do? The first sentence I said was the core point, which was this piece of paper is this, and here's what it's for. And then my explanation explains that a bit more. I'm not really following any structure. I'm just making sure to keep flow as I speak, trying to not say filler words, okay? So try word association lightning, take any object around you and just use PE, your bottom line up front, again, keeping that concise, and then giving me an explanation that's around 30 seconds in length, ideally. All right, day 9 is where we practice a framework called what, so what, now what. So what is a simple sentence or two that describes the current situation. So what is a sentence or two that describes why it should matter to your audience. And now what is a few sentences describing, now that we understand this, what should we do next? You might often see this framework used whenever we're giving an update about a project to our executive team, or whenever we have to give a status report. So let me give you an example of how you could use this. The current trend that we're seeing in the creator economy is a lot of people are beginning to adopt AI. And this is really important for us as creators because it helps us accelerate our ability to create content. At the same time, however, there are potentially negative ramifications, such as content being lower in quality because a lot of bots are creating them. So in today's discussion, I want us to focus on what are the core things that we as creators should do when it comes to responsibly adopting AI. You see how each sentence I say can match up to each portion of the framework. Now, it may be hard for you to come up with these ideas on the fly, and that's why I think this framework in particular takes a lot of reps. You may need to spend more days to get this right, but whatever it is, just think of a particular topic that comes to mind, try to explain what's the current status of it, why is it important to us now? And what should we talk about moving forward? And the final framework you can practice in day 10 is the PREP framework. PREP stands for point, reason, example, point. Now, if you're interested in the PREP framework, make sure to check out this video up here, which gives you a much more in-depth breakdown of the PREP framework. But at its core, there are 4 parts. There's the P, which is your bottom line up front. That's your main point. R represents reason, so it's a rationale statement. Why is it that you have this point? E is an example, so you might give a bit of a story, a bit more context that explains this in a bit more color. And then P is your summarizing point. Okay, so each sentence should be aligned to a certain portion of the framework. Now, watch as I demonstrate and notice the signposts that I'm using here. These are the key words at the beginning of a sentence to indicate where I am in the framework. For example, this phone is so important for my creator business. The reason why this is so important is because I use it all the time to record videos like the one that you're seeing here. For example, when I first started as a creator, I just pulled out my phone, no microphone, and began recording. And I noticed after doing this a few times that one of my videos blew up to more than 3 million views. And I thought to myself, well, why not try to use a phone more often for my recording? So that's why this phone is so important for my creator business and growing a following on social media. You see how each sentence matches up to a certain part of the framework? Give that a try and see how it goes. So by the end of these 10 days, you should be really clear on key structures you can follow, as well as key exercises to practice to be a more dynamic speaker. And let me tell you, as I'm recording this video, I'm not reading a script. I'm simply going off key bullets that I have in mind, and I'm speaking very fluidly. Remember, if you want to get better at this yourself, whether for content creation or just to be better as a communicator at work, make sure to check out the Impromptu Speakers Academy. The link is in the description, where I teach you these frameworks and help you really make it a part of your day-to-day speaking. And if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.